Welcome to Talkin Maine with a Bowtie Boy. I'm Tom Saviello, and I have my good friend Richard Corey with me again. Richard.
Yeah, good to see you again, Tom.
It's great when you come on because I get so fascinated with the stories you tell about Wilton. So we moved from East Wilton, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Wilton itself, downtown Wilton.
We sure are today. We're going to talk about some of the buildings that were around the monument area in downtown, where Castleos and Ambition Brewery and where the Civil War monument is. So we're going to take a look at some of the buildings that are down there today.
Great. And I think we've got some pictures that Andre's put into the system for us and Tommy. And so you want to go right to the pictures and work off of that? Or do you
Sure. No, I think we can do that. So,
all right. So we're ready. We're ready anytime you are for number one, which is the picture, I think, of the old Dugway, isn't it?
The old canal. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, we're taking a look at the museum, the Wilton Historical Society Museum. Is the white building you see there. And this picture is taken from like the perspective if you're at the boat landing at Wilson Lake and looking downtown area. And that's Canal Street, basically. And this is a view of the sawmill that was there too. Is for one of the earliest uses of that area was a sawmill. That's when Samuel Butterfield moved over from East Wilton to Wilton in 1797 and started to do the extensive works of dugouts and dugways and canals and penstocks there in Wilton using the outlet.
So the Historical Society, Wilton Historical Society building was there before the big red building was built?
Correct,
wow,
correct.
I did not know that.
The Historical Society's building is known as the Rossum Fuller's House. And basically he built the place around 1860, or during the Civil War era, 1860-ish, and during probably the middle of it. He was a Civil War veteran, and basically he moved up from Jay. He was a Jay native, and he started building that, like I said, in the middle of
But he didn't build it as a, later for Bass it became kind of a boarding house.
That's
but he
correct.
built it as a regular home?
Yes, because he actually had the business there. He purchased the sawmill and was running the business there as sawmill. And so he was a Civil War vet, like I might have mentioned and stuff, so he was probably had that built right around 1865. We do know that one of his son was born in 1866, so we know that he did some service in the Civil War and then probably came home, had a son, and then that's where he stayed for a little bit. Wow. And you know what's interesting about Fuller? He disliked mud, I think, because with his sawmill, he actually was able to make a lot of planking, and it is said that he was responsible to put sidewalks all the way from where the Bass building now is all the way down in Dryden is for wooden planks, and that's where
we like a boardwalk.
And as with you being one of the Wilton select persons, as far as there was the Rossum Fuller of Sidewalk Fund.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
So that's where it came from. No kidding.
Yeah, when he died, he left about $13,000, I think, to the town for sidewalks, as well as Wilton Academy and I think one of the churches and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of cool. So.
And we actually do use that fund to match. That's why we've been able to enhance the curbing and the sidewalks that we have in town. So that's where that came from. So it's that old. Wow.
Yeah, so that's
pretty cool.
So when Bass was actually looking to build a plant, whatever, they wanted to buy that property, and so that's what they ultimately did. So if we look at the next page.
Next picture, coming up. It's a picture of what was now the old Bass building, but it's the new Bass building in this picture. In the sense.
Yep. Okay, what we have is almost a similar view as the previous picture, but just the angle's a little bit different. You can see the museum on the left-hand side there. You can see just the where the patio is right now, basically, is right in that area.
And so the sawmill, it was where the Bass building is now sitting.
So Bass approached Fuller and they sold the property there in 1903, 1904, and they started constructing this building just about at that time. And I bet you know how much this building cost to build in 1903, 1904?
$1,000.
It was $13,000.
$13,000.
$13,000 to build this building, and apparently, if they wanted to have a special type of flooring, whether it was maple or something like that, they would add $275.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's amazing. It was a company out of Auburn that came up and built this
And
building.
it's still there?
Yeah, you can kind of see the old depression of the canals right
Yeah,
along the
yeah.
building there and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
Bass had moved from down. They had a plant down by McGillicuddy's Park.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
and that's that they really outgrew that location, and then that's where they built this one up in here.
Wow.
Here's kind of a busy map of downtown Wilton. You're probably right around 1870-ish. And it shows, Wilson Pond and the outlet and some of the canal systems as far as, and also the waterway. The dark area is Wilson Stream, and you can see all the different buildings that are there. And you can kind of see, there's an SM where the sawmill is, and you see J.E. Hiscock right there
Yep.
too. He operated the sawmill apparently at that time. But interesting as far as you see kind of a dashed line. It's from right above Hiscock, and it was a penstock that ran all the way down through town. Now a penstock is kind of a enclosed tube or canal that was buried there. And it supplied a lot of different water sources to the various takeoffs down in Wilton. We know that there was probably, a dozen or so more businesses or factories that relied on this water here. We have starting with the sawmill and the grist mill, and it went down through, and there was a woolen mill and a tannery and things like this. But this kind of gives us a good picture of how busy Wilson Stream was during this time.
And that's one of the things as a selectman, as we take some of the money that we have coming into us, I've suggested that we look into the integrity of that. Because the last thing we need to do is find out that, it's going out of control, and a couple of the buildings that now are on top of it all of a sudden fall into a deep hole. But wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Okay, we got the next picture here. Is we're right by the bridge in Wilton, looking up at the outlet, and we have the sawmill on the right. You can see the side of the sawmill and stuff, and you can see a dam in the very distance, and then building off to the right there is we'll look at in the next slide.
That's basically where Calzaleo's patio is, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. Yep. So that's this, and where the ice cream store is. The first building you see is right where the ice cream store is, and the dugout area there, dugway, was probably dug out by Butterfield and his brother Henry back during, like I said, 1797, to control that channel and stuff like that. Because it's probably not that way in nature. It probably was meandering and stuff
probably
like that.
small because
it was So it would be really tough to really know where that course of the stream really was.
Wow. Next one?
Oh, yeah. Well, soon here here we have the outlet.
Yeah.
We're looking down at the outlet, and that bridge that we see is just about right the same location where the bridge is now that goes to the boat access.
And you can make the Bass building out on the middle right-hand side.
Yeah, you can see it in the real distance there. Well, this building right here was initially a wood peg factory. And only operated a couple of years. Apparently, there was some wooden pegs that had to be used in making shoes and stuff like that. We're talking very early on here, probably in the 1860s and stuff. But the town wouldn't give him a tax break. So he moved. He moved to New Hampshire, I think, down in the Keene, New Hampshire area, I believe. So ultimately, about 1873, a family name of Sawyers that came to town that were big a big name as far as commercial development of downtown area during that period of time. And they started a corn canning factory here.
Oh,
So this was a canning factory, and so they would not only just corn, but they probably did apples, and I've heard of even canning meat sometimes later on. You know.
Next picture looks like kind of a celebration.
Oh, it is sort of a celebration. You know, this is one of my favorite pictures of downtown Wilton. It's probably taken around 1890, and we've got a lot going on in this picture. You know, you got to think it's 1890 is for United States or the Northeast. We were really interested in what was going out west.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like a Wild West show. If you look closely at these pictures, it's basically men dressed up on horsebacks with Indian outfits on, and cowboys and stuff like that. And I think the building down in the center there, I think like a burnt out cabin or something like that.
Yeah.
So you can see, but it's really a great photograph, because what this picture does is shows a lot of the buildings that were in the downtown area here. There's only one building that's currently left there, and you can see way in the distance. You can see up there. You can see the old historical society.
Yeah, the old boarding house or
the full house.
Yeah.
Now, and to the left of the picture there, we see the roof of the sawmill, and just down, just before that, we see a lower structure, which was the mill keeper's house, Captain Fernal's or one of his hired men and stuff like that. And of course, we have some of the other buildings right next to the Historical Society is an old storage unit, and we have the open horse wagon shed right there. You can kind of see that. And then the next building in this kind of the center is the Sawyer, kind of the dry goods stores. Yeah, even down bottom here too. As far as there was that other area in the middle there was used for several different other companies, and we'll cover them in a minute here. But mainly, let's take a look at that building on the right there. There was a W.E. Sawyer dry goods and grocery store at the time, and upstairs, Tom, was the town hall.
Oh, no kidding!
Yeah, the town hall. It was a town hall. And it has an auditorium and stuff, and it had they had plays there, and probably graduations and stuff like that. And we got a couple pictures, not today, but during the 1903 celebration of the
Wilton, 100 years old.
100 years old. There's some pictures of that building up there.
Did it burn down?
It did, and we'll see a picture of it in a little bit here.
Okay.
Okay, and a few years later, we have another similar view, but what we do, we have a new building on site here. We have that grist mill on the left-hand side. You see that large structure there with the tower and stuff like that?
It's kind of where the ice cream shop is now.
Exactly. And that right there was built in 1899.
Wow.
1899. And earlier, there was a fire. We're going to cover one fire, but there's two buildings off to the right where the Sawyer grocery store is. There was a grist mill there, and there was a starch factory, for getting starch out of potatoes and stuff.
Starch factory, yeah.
And that those two buildings burnt. It was the first great fire of Wilton, and I believe it's 1886. And it's a wonder that it didn't burn down more of that side of the river. They said that the wind came up and actually started blowing the embers towards the lake, or else they would have lost that whole side of the street. And we're going to see that Wilton did in 1893 lose one side of the street. But let's go to the next one here.
Oops.
Now here we have another similar view, but right now we've got the Civil War monument there. That was constructed in 1912. 1912. And
that would be 50 years after the Civil War.
Yeah.
I actually have an old newspaper at home somewhere that went through the different legislation that was passed. It was called Argus. And if you look in it, it shows many of the towns that came along that got money from the state to build those monuments, and they were not to cost more than $250.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have seen some figures on that, and a guy named Adams was kind of responsible for some of the work. I can't remember the first name, but I'll have to take a look at it. But it is neat. As far as we had a lot of Civil War veterans here in Wilton and stuff, and there was a publication that came out, I think, about 1900, as far as that, it listed all the the people that was receiving pensions, and there was like 30 or so right around that time period of Civil War veterans.
Wow. And you can still see now the fire hasn't hit yet because you have the grist mill on the left, you have the old Bass building, shoe building in the back, you've got the Historical Society in the middle, the livery stable. I mean, there's still the water hole, the water fountain, watering spot in front of that today.
Yeah.
And then those two buildings are, one's a parking lot and one of the others where Key Bank is as you move to the right.
That is correct.
I gotcha. All right. Next picture is a picture of
the Historical Society, or Wilson Lake Inn.
Wow.
Well, we've talked a little bit about it already, but we talked about that it was initially Fuller's house, and then Bass purchased it in 1904, and he wanted to use it as a boarding house. As far as you got to think, as far as before the advent of the automobile, and he had a number of workers that had to come in from away, from outskirts of town even. So they boarded here. And we know that it served as a boarding house for them right up until the early 1940s. Wow. And then they started to use it as open to the public as the Wilton Lake Inn. Okay. It still was mainly used for housing salesmen and workers and stuff at that time, but at that time it had been opened up to the public.
Now, how long has the Historical Society had that? Do you know?
I believe it was given to us around 1987 or something like that, but don't quote me on that, but it was right around that period of time. And we can see, we've been seeing changes over time as far as the pictures. We know up on top there's two dormers that are up there that they weren't initially there, and there was kind of I call it breezeways that was enclosed that kind of connected the two buildings. If you did a comparisons of all the old photographs that we have of this area.
Wow.
Okay, here we have a picture. This is a picture of part of what I call the Sawyer block.
Right,
and we see right on the left, we see the corner of the grist mill and stuff like that. This picture here was given to me by my cousin Annie Ager, and her father, her grandfather actually was a meat cutter, and he had a meat business here in town. And his name was Morris York. And if the picture was clear enough, you could see Morris York meat market. And his son, Dr. Robert York, ended up to be a professor down at USM. He died 10, 15 years ago, but he was really responsible for the Historic Preservation Office down in Augusta. He saw the demise of the Union building down in Portland, and he knew that in the early 70s, and he wanted to have some preservation. So he actually was very instrumental in starting the Historic Preservation Office there. And
now, was he related to the Dr. York that was
distant?
That was in town also.
Yep. So
cool. And then this is the next one is the actual Sawyer
building,
and the town offices up on the second floor.
Yeah. And this here was taken in 1919, right at the end of the First World War. You can kind of see the celebration, and with the I get some of the photos mixed up because of the 1903 celebrations look very similar.
Right.
But this was this building here was, like we had mentioned, was served as the top part was the town hall.
Wow.
And
they were celebrating. They had enough of those flag things all over the place.
They did. So, but we do know that building did not last a real long time. In either the late 50s or early 60s, there was a fire there, and it destroyed basically the integrity of the building. And you can see the current bank on the right-hand side, where Kuznals has apartments and offices and stuff like that. So, and it's interesting to see too, as far as the old gas pumps off the left. As far as I don't have a picture of it. I should have probably put one on. The old after the grist mill was taken down where the ice cream store was. The Brookside, it was a gas station that was put up in downtown there, and that was there for a long period of time.
I've told people that when I was 12 years old, I got gas at that gas pump.
Yep.
We were coming through town. I still remember it.
Yep.
I don't remember the buildings, but I remember the gas pump, and then we found a little place to get something to eat when we were in town. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, and then of course where a bank was built in about 1908, right adjacent to the Sawyer Block, right there. Canal Street's right behind there. So this would be right at the intersection of High Street and Canal Street.
Wilton Trust and Banking Company.
Yep. One of your, Morrison Keene's family had a lot to do with this bank.
Keene Morrison.
Keene Morrison.
Yeah.
I always get that mixed
That's
up.
all right, because the only way I know Keene is that where I live in Wilton is the apple orchard. That was Keene Morrison's apple orchard. All right.
Well, here's another favorite picture of mine too. Here we are looking up High Street.
Wow.
And you can see the open lot right there is where that bank we just saw was built in. And then we have the Great Wall Chinese restaurant on the right.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
yep.
And then this building here, the big one with the door, central door there, was the Fenderson House. And that building was actually moved up to the lake.
Yep, okay.
The Stoles,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
And I think
Stoles,
the general manager of the paper company.
United
actually,
Timberlands. It was, yeah.
And that right there was Charles Morse House. It was built in 1824. And I was going through some of her records, and it was kind of neat as far as one of the sons was mentioned how the mother just didn't like how people were using their front yard. Basically, were coming and going from the sawmill and the other factories down there, so they crossed right over their yard, their pretty yard. So in 1840, they put those trees in. Here we have a newspaper article of this son telling us about how this was constructed. So in 1840, those trees were put in, and they put in the granite elevated areas so that it would avoid people would have to kind of walk around it, and instead of going right through their yard.
Now that's where the parking lot is now.
That is correct.
Yeah. So the municipal parking lot is up in
Yeah,
that.
and that building wasn't moved until I believe around 1950s. You know, so it's relatively recent in Wilton's history. And here we have the next picture as we're going up, looking up the Wilton Stream to the outlet, and we have the Hiscock building on the left.
Yeah.
And we have the Miller's house on the right.
Yeah.
And Hiscock was kind of like the town manager, and he was responsible in 1904 for water being come to Wilton, dug from Farnham Pond down. And I just learned this week, Tom. This is interesting as far as from the water department people, Dale. He was telling me that the immigrants, they hired a bunch of immigrants.
Italian immigrants, I believe they were.
From Boston area, I believe, and they came up and they had a camp right near the Colby Miller Road, right up in your
my
neighborhood. Yeah, so they would have a big camp up there, because I'm not sure how many of those, probably several hundreds of people that were working to dig on this.
No kidding. Yeah, the water line goes right in front of my property that they hand dug.
Yeah. Yep. So here we have the next picture. Here we have of the grist mill.
Oh yeah, okay,
That was the big grist mill, right where the ice cream store is now.
Yeah.
And that lasted up until about, I think, the early 30s, and replaced by Brookside, where you get the gas.
Yeah.
You see the Bass in the distance.
Now, did Brookside have a little like cafe in it?
I don't know. I'm too young, and I was over in East Wilton. I didn't get to Wilton very often.
Yeah. Okay.
And okay, then here's some more series of kind of pictures of the Bass building. Here we have a next picture.
If I'm correct on the Bass building, didn't the town kind of build it and then sell it to Bass for $1? or something like that. Have you heard that story? No, I heard that
No.
the town had kind of financed it, and ultimately because of all the jobs and everything, and we sold it to the Bass family for $1.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that yet. Here we have a picture of the Bass factory as it would look in 1904 with the various, they had 2 more additions later on. And the next picture we can actually see how it looked in 1912 with the addition of maybe of a floor,
Yeah.
I believe, and some other stuff.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is. Yeah, the 4th floor.
And then the next picture we have is another picture of Bass, and this is how we kind of look at it right now, as far as basically with Cazaleos down bottom in the basement there. And
Yep.
I think I've mentioned in some of our shows before, my father was a hand sewer, and he actually worked in this building, and he would have on the top floor.
Wow. Yeah, right where that is.
So
Richard, we got about 5 minutes. So
Okay,
and don't rush.
Yep.
This is fine, because what we'll do is, when we get to the 2-minute warning, I'll tell you, and we'll just hold the rest of the pictures,
Okay.
and
Well-
you can just add to them as we go.
Let's kind of quickly go through the next pictures here. This is a view of Main Street, where like
Just
the
before
Ambition Brewery is, with that big building on the right.
yeah.
That's where the Wilton House. That's a kind of a hotel lodging, and this is how the street looked prior to the fire of 1893.
So this is across the street from the
Right.
Sawyer complex.
Yeah, exactly. And we're looking, right, I said at the Ambition Brewery, and down further would be where the Wilton Hardware store would be.
Oh, wow.
But then we had the next picture here. We show the devastating effects. Here we have a picture of the aftermath of the fire of April 2nd, I believe, 1893. And this is where we're looking down where the library is currently.
Right.
And you can see the Congo Church right there on the left-hand side of the road.
So it stayed on that side of the road?
Yep.
Huh, wow.
Yeah, I have if we looked at some close-up pictures, the next picture, yep, we can see where they put planking and wet rags on the buildings on the opposite side in order to avoid the heat.
Wow.
And here we have a picture of looking back towards
Hill.
Bass Hill. We
Yeah.
can see the Furno place there up on the upper right-hand side.
Wow.
And
quite
then
the
here's
fire.
the next picture here too. We're showing, looking back at the monument area. Yeah, this is great. You see the Sawyer building, the big white building,
yeah.
Canal Street right behind it.
Wow.
And then you can kind of see it saved. You just think as far as with that massive building, with that hot of fire, it's amazing that the whole town did not go up in smoke. But this is a kind of a great shot, and you can kind of see the Miller's house there and the Historical Society there in the distance.
Yeah.
And well, maybe we'll see the next picture. Yeah. Well, nothing keeps some Yankees down here. Real quickly, within a couple of years, they built that street back, and here we have probably a 4th of July celebration here. I'm not sure whether it was the end of World War I, a 1919 photo, or what, but anyway, we have a nice picture here of how it looks, and it looks very similar as it does today.
So why don't we, Richard, since we're
Yep.
running out of time, stop there, because I think you're going to talk a little bit about the
Yep.
Bass shoe history at this point.
Yep,
This would be
this is
logical
this is a
place
good spot to stop.
But this is fascinating to me, because I knew it had been a fire, but I didn't know how devastating it was.
Hey, I just noticed, Tom. Okay, maybe
Go back one.
Go back one if we
Just
could.
go back one.
If we got one more minute to do.
I think we can go back one picture. I think it says it's 1903, doesn't it?
Okay, yes, it could be.
Yeah,
Could be that
But it still
celebration.
shows
Yep.
what's
Yep.
going on. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I just saw a picture of the kind of the sidewalk there.
Oh, yeah,
where the
yeah,
wood
yeah,
is.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
kind of see on the left there,
Yeah.
kind of a wooden sidewalk
Yes,
here.
I do. I
So
mean, and
full
it's
of-
fascinating that's how long that trust fund has been around since
Isn't
he
it
put it
amazing?
into place. It is amazing that see that kind of effort that was there. But it's amazing the history of these towns that are
Yeah.
out there, and the Dugway that's going down there. I mean, that supplied the energy to run the Bass Shoe Place, because they had a
Yep.
generator down below.
Yep.
and then watch how that town grew and how it's changed so much.
No, it's great.
So Richard, we'll come back. We'll get you to come back on, and we'll start with the Bass Building, and you can add to the,
Okay.
the deck. And ultimately, like we've talked, I want to come downtown and walk it with you and see some of these places.
This would be great.
Cool. Richard, thank
Okay,
you. As
thank you.
always,
Okay.
mesmerized me. It
Okay.
was great talk.
Super.
Wonderful. Hey, tune in next time. We'll have Richard back on in a couple of weeks, and we'll continue the story of downtown Wilton. We'll see you next time.